Next presenter will be Jan Moeller from the Louisiana Budget Project, who has a different take, a different perspective.
Well, thank you, Gene, for inviting us to make a few brief remarks. And a lot of what I was going to say has already been covered. But I want to say a couple of things. First of all, we agree with the governor that the tax system is complex, that there are too many exemptions and loopholes, and that it's been time to take a look at these for several years. But I also, we agree with Jim that when you move to a system of higher sales taxes and eliminating income taxes, you are going to shift the tax burden from the highest earners to low and moderate income families. And I know the administration is working on ways to mitigate this, but if you're going to do this in a revenue neutral fashion, it's frankly almost impossible to get it done. But our main point, and if I want to make one main point, is if we're going to undertake this incredibly complex task of looking at our overall tax structure, this should not be done without looking at the context of where we stand on the budget. And as anybody who's been around here the last few years, our budget has been in dire straits. We've had 5 straight years of deep cuts, 5 straight years of shortfalls. If you go back, even look at over the past decade, the state general fund on an inflation-adjusted basis is down over 6%, but the money we lose to tax exemptions is up by 167% over that same time period. We've had higher education in this state support for higher education cut by more than $625 million. Per pupil spending in public school is down by more than $500 when you count the inflation factor that hasn't been funded for 4 straight years. And Louisiana's budget problems are continuing at a time when other states are digging out from this great recession we've been through. 2 years ago, in 2010-11, you had 42 states had budget shortfalls. Last year it was down to 31. Last year we were one of only 10 states that had mid-year budget shortfalls. Ours was the biggest state budget shortfall in the country when you compare it to the overall state budget. And of course this year we had another mid-year shortfall, and we've really started to cut the budget to the bone. We're closing beds for battered women's shelters. We're closing the nurse family partnership, which is one of the most effective anti-poverty programs we have. We're shutting down healthcare for mental health care for at-risk kids. So we're no longer cutting fat in state government. We're cutting down to the bone. And when I asked our partners in Washington, well, how many other states had mid-year shortfalls this year, they said, we stopped keeping track of that because everybody else is kind of digging out. So I don't think you can have this, or you should have this conversation and say that it's going to be revenue neutral. If you're going to look at these tax exemptions, if you're going to look at which exemptions are not doing their job, then it should be with an eye towards raising revenue and reinvesting some of the money we've lost in higher education. We heard Dr. Jenkins at LSU come out this week and say our flagship institution is in danger of falling into the second tier. That shouldn't happen in 2013, but we've been cutting the budget so much. There are a lot of other problems that we suspect with what the governor's proposing. Again, we're worried about the regressivity. We also worry that if you take away a key income, the income tax, you're going to be putting a lot of eggs in the sales tax basket. I mean, none of us would take our retirement nest egg and put 60% of it on IBM. And we're essentially saying we're going to put a whole lot of our revenue base into one tax source. We're also worried about the impact this would have on seniors and people on fixed incomes. We have an earned income tax credit in this state that gives a rebate to low-income workers, and that could be expanded. But people on Social Security, state retirees, they don't pay state income tax right now, but they would be paying more for goods and services under this plan, and we are very worried about how they will be protected. But having said that, we are very glad glad and very encouraged that there is finally a serious look being taken at all of these tax exemptions and what they've done to our tax code. We just wish they weren't trading that for elimination of the income tax.